feel like we just did one of these, Rube.
That's because we just did one of these.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah, this is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Ruben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Emergency pod was Wednesday. Regular pod Thursday. We promised you guys we weren't going to change the schedule. We're still going to do all the normal pods, and here we are.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of an emergency pod. It's like if we didn't do one today, then the emergency pod just becomes the second pod.
True.
This way, it retains a true emergency status.
Very fair. If you missed it, that emergency pod was about the Robert Quinn trade. So we'll go into that a little bit more today. We have some more details. Met Robert Quinn. He's in Philly, already practiced for the first time as an Eagle. And then at the end of the pod, we want to talk about the Steelers. We haven't talked much about this game. And look, the Steelers aren't a very good team, but any given Sunday and all that. So we'll go through the matchups that are important. But Robert Quinn arrives. It was good to see him out on the practice field already.
Yeah, and the Eagles put together, their video guys do a really nice job. They put a video together of different players greeting him, Kelsey in the hallway and BG at his locker. And, they showed him kind of one of the support staff kind of showing him around if they looked like they were going into the trainer's room. It's a big adjustment for a guy who, and he's been traded before, but this is 7 weeks into the season. All of a sudden, you're in a new city. You got to, open a new bank account. You got to find a place to live. You don't know anybody. It's a lot. And, beyond the fact that you're now playing a defense that you don't know. We kind of, as media or fans or whoever, it's like, oh, they traded this guy, they traded that guy. But for the player, I mean, it can be, he's been in Chicago. I guess this was his third year. It's a lot in the middle of a season. You got family. All of a sudden, you just kind of got all this upheaval, and it's not easy. And it's not easy to now make sure the focus is football and getting ready to play as soon as possible.
Yeah, it is funny because we're so used to it in terms of just this happens. Trades happen, but when you take a step back and you think about what a trade is, it's pretty crazy. Like, this dude was in Chicago yesterday, gets traded. He's on a flight the next day, and he's out at practice already. They're like, he's got to go live in this new city across the country. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, it's like if they just said, "Hey, Rube, by the way, you're now working for NBC Sports Idaho."
The easy one would have been Chicago there.
Probably would have, but I wanted to go non-linear there. Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot, and he just talked to the media, and he seemed kind of overwhelmed still, understandably so.
Yeah, that shock hasn't worn off quite yet. It's going to have to pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
But he does seem like, he's in the playbook and trying to learn this defense. There's plenty of carryover from what he's done previously. I think that'll help. But, the big thing is terminology. And he also said names. Like he wants, it's a point of pride for him to learn names, and it's something he's not good at. That probably has some carryover to the playbook too. It's just that memory. Some guys are able to pick up that stuff quickly, and other guys it's going to take a little while.
I'm really bad with names.
Are you?
Really?
You know what I'm very good at? Not using names. I just look at people and start talking. I'm not good at names.
Yeah. I don't know your name yet, honestly.
It's fair.
No, but there's people behind me in our building who I've worked with for 10 years. I don't know who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, names are tough. And look, he's a veteran. He's seen a lot. And you mentioned it on the emergency pod. He plays a position where there's not as much to learn, right? Like some other positions, it's like you come in on a short week trying to learn a playbook, it's going to be tough. And not to say this is easy, but it's easier.
Easier than a skill position. Certainly, receiver, running back, quarterback, corner, I would think. But he's a smart guy. He's been around a long time. He's played in a lot of different defenses. I don't know if there's any conversation about whether he would be – I don't think he was asked if he feels like he could play Sunday against Pittsburgh. We talked about this the other day. I would think they'd give him a little bit of playing time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. Brandon Graham said today, he's like, I think he should be able to play a little bit. And it kind of the same thing we were talking about is it's a little easier to learn a little bit. And if all they feel comfortable having him do is rush the passer, I mean, he's pretty good at that. Just let him. It's a little different than, the Jim Schwartz defense was really easy for linemen to learn. It was one kept get up the field and get after the quarterback. If you see the running back on the way, try to bring him down. This is a little more involved. And as an edge rusher, there might be times eventually where they'll ask him to drop. And that kind of is like learning extra stuff. But
I think we'll see that on Sunday.
that's the thing. They can kind of simplify this for him immediately and say, you're really good at rushing the passer. Here's the tackle you're going to be facing. Go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think snap count might look like?
I would think pretty low. I mean, I don't think they're going to throw him out there for 30 plays, but
8 to 10, maybe 12.
yeah, I was thinking like 10 to 12, maybe 15 at the most.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot will depend how many snaps they have.
And you also have to remember he is a 32-year-old guy who just played on Monday. So it's already a short week for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And had to, I mean, get on a plane and fly to a new city. It's a lot. I remember talking to the running back they got.
JJ?
It's a couple of months ago. They added a veteran running back.
Oh, Trey Sermon.
Trey Sermon, thank you. See, I'm bad with names. I told you. I remember talking to him the day he got here, and he's like, people don't realize how hard this is. Like, I'm like, where am I? I'm like looking around. I've never been in this building. I don't know anybody here. He's like, I got to get groceries. It's like, I don't know where to get. You just don't think about that stuff. But it's part of being a professional, and it can always happen. You can always wake up the next day and be in a different city. I guess not after the trade deadline, but anything's possible. And I think a guy who's been in the league as long as Robert Quinn knows that.
Yeah. We're number 98. We were right about that. There weren't many options.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is kind of an interior lineman number, but he'll make it work.
Yeah, he'll make it work. It's fine. Connor Barwin made it work to the tune of 14 and a half sacks in 2014.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I went back. Can I share? I went back and watched a little bit of Quinn. I was excited to do that last night. He still got it.
Yeah.
He still got it. The first thing that stands out is there were very few snaps where he was just in a one-on-one situation. And it's not like he was getting doubled every time, but a lot of tight end attention over there, a lot of running back attention over there. He was the guy on that line you had to worry about. There are other guys on this line to worry about. So I think right away that'll help him. He'll play less here than he did in Chicago, certainly. So that might help him too. But I watched him, and the bend is still there. We all hear about that bend and the explosion and the get off, and it's still there. There are flashes of it. I just went back to Monday night. There were plays where you're like, oh, he can still get around the edge. Big Trent Brown I think that's 77 in New England, getting around him, which is the guy you want to bend against. But he's savvy, and I think he can help him. Now, we've been fooled before by some veterans, and you never really know. But judging on what he's done this year, I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, I mean, this guy had 18 and a half sacks a year ago. So you don't lose it overnight. And I think the really intriguing thing is, like you said, I mean, he's got much less attention paid to him here than he did in Chicago, just because Chicago didn't have Josh Sweat and BG and Hargrave and Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox and Hassan Reddick and every other guy up front that teams are going to have to deal with. And, people are asking me, like, how many sacks is fair to expect from him over these last 11 games? I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of with you in that it's really more about pressure, but I don't think there's any reason he can't get himself 5 or 6 sacks, 7 sacks over these next couple months. I mean, he's in shape. He's coming off a Pro Bowl season. I get the feeling this isn't Ryan Kerrigan, but like you said, we've been fooled before, especially at that position. This team kind of has a history of getting over the hill edge rushers.
But they've also hit on some older edge rushers too. You look at Chris Long, even Michael Bennett had 9 sacks in 2018.
Yeah, played well that year in 18.
Yeah.
I mean, the issues with him weren't really on the field as much. Yeah. I like the guy. He was a lot of fun to talk to.
One of the more interesting guys I've ever gotten the chance to cover.
He was a fascinating cat.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what they have in him and how they use him and where he fits in. Just what the snap count's going to look like Monday morning when we hit reload on our game books.
Yeah. To oversimplify what this rotation is going to look like, for the most part, you're going to have Sweat and Quinn on the right side of the defensive line going against left tackles. Then on the other side, you'll have Hassan Reddick and BG going against right tackles. So it kind of fits, it lines up well to just plug and play in there.
Yeah. And, I think it's going to help everybody. I mean, I don't know how many teams have this kind of talent coming off the bench up front as far as edge rushers. And it's not going to be easy to block these guys.
Yeah, and look, it kind of reminds you in a way of Jay Ajayi in 2017 in that there are only X amount of snaps to go around. In that case, it was touches, right? But there are only X amount of snaps to go around. So it's going to take some level of selflessness from these guys to understand that, no, it benefits the team if you rotate and you tire out offensive lines because they don't get the opportunity to rotate. And as long as they understand that, and as long as they see the benefit of it, and I think they will, it makes sense.
I just think there's a real culture of, and it's such an overused word, but there just seems to be a real culture of, whatever's best for the team around here. I think it's something that, goes back even before Nick. It goes back to Howie. It's something Howie really emphasizes when he's looking at players. At least recently, I think he has. I think that's more of a recent Howie thing. But for Nick, it's a real. I mean, we talk about his core values and joke about it, but that's a real hallmark of his approach. Is it's about us. It's not about me. And you see these guys accept new players at every position. Whenever, down to Jake Elliott. I mean, Jake Elliott wasn't going to lose his job to Cameron Dicker, but you know what I mean. I mean, these guys all help each other out. When a new guy comes in, they take him under their wing, and they understand that it's about what's best for the team, and that's not always what's best for me. And you have to. It's not always easy to suppress that, that ego side of it, but if it helps you win football games and helps you achieve your ultimate goal, guys are going to do it if you have the right guys, which I think they do.
Yeah, I agree with you. You want to go into some of the numbers on his contract because we found out more of those since the emergency pod. Pretty fascinating. It basically boils down to the Bears paid for a 4th-round pick.
Pretty much. Yeah, the Bears are paying $7.1 million and the way contracts work, he had a $12.8 base salary this year. So you carve that up into 18 pieces, 18 weekly pieces, 17 weeks and a bye week. So he's been paid 7/18 of his contract already. And out of the remaining amount, which was something like just under $8 million, I think, the Bears are paying all but about $715,000 of it,
which is the veteran minimum.
So the Eagles are basically getting, and then the last 2 years of base salary disappear. They're non-guaranteed. So the Eagles have no obligations financially other than paying the guy.
Well, the thing that those years are still there. So they have, I mean, not that they're going to keep him at that price, but they have
his right
at that salary, but they have his rights, and they can, if he plays well, they can have first dibs to renegotiate.
Right. So, yeah, they can. I mean, he won't be hitting free agency, but he also won't be hitting those $13-14 million the next couple of years either. But if he plays, if he plays well, they have great flexibility. If he plays well, they'll have exclusive negotiating rights with him, and after the season up until, the first day of the league year, which I know is March 8th.
I think it's a little later than that.
March 12th, something like that. Yeah. But, and if he doesn't play well, or if they can't come to an agreement, there's no guaranteed money. There's no cap hit. And his cap hit this year is the same amount as what they're paying him, because obviously they didn't pay him a bonus. So his cap hit is $715,000 as well. So it's really about the fourth round pick. The Bears really wanted it. Howie's like, I can conjure up fourth round picks in my sleep. And I mean, I don't know if it's worth it for the Bears. I mean, it's just money. They get a decent mid round pick, but the Eagles get a chance at a real impact player for a fourth round pick. I think you got to like what they did there. Yeah,
I mean the downside isn't, even if it blows up in their face, it's like, what's the worst thing that happens? I did want to ask you this, because I don't think we talked about it on the emergency pod. Do you think Howie's done?
Probably.
Okay.
But he, you never say definitely with him.
Yeah. They've kind of gotten rid of those mid-round picks that are normally, at least next year, that are the ammo, but you can find ways.
Yeah. Somebody asked me why the Eagles are always, somebody on Twitter asked me, why are the Eagles always, every time there's a player, there's trade rumor, like the Eagles are involved? Well, that's because Howie is going to ask about every single player that's available. He's going to call that team. And then, then the agents, calls the national guys and say, oh, the Eagles called about this guy. They're trying to drum up interest. Howie's doing his due diligence. And I think that's the case with every player that's rumored to be on the market. Howie's going to say, look, what are you thinking here? They're going to look at film of the guy. They're just going to do their due diligence on every single guy. And word is going to get out. The Eagles, called about this guy. It doesn't mean they're going to get him. It doesn't mean they're even seriously considering it. But I think every time a player is available, they're going to be rumored to be in the mix, just because Howie's going to be making phone calls about him.
Wouldn't it be
a position that they don't really, need? He's going to look into it.
Yeah, it's a talent acquisition phase all year round, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're always looking. Wouldn't it be the most Howie thing ever to trade Andre Dillard and then flip that pick for a player?
I thought you were going to say to trade Robert Quinn before the deadline for a 3. That would be the ultimate Howie move. Yeah. I mean,
time's running out. The deadline's Tuesday.
And
it would take a really good offer, I think, to pry Andre Dillard away.
Would you do it for a 4?
No.
You do it for a 3, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of that's what I'm thinking. I might do it for a 4. I guess it depends, what you think of Driscoll at left tackle.
For me, the biggest difference between Dillard at left tackle and Driscoll at left tackle is Driscoll can survive, but you have to, if he has to start for more than one game in a row, you're going to have to change your offensive game plan to help him. If Dillard has to start multiple games, you don't.
But there's also the sense that, Driscoll could, he barely took any reps there before he had to play there. Mm-hmm. There is a sense that he could get better and kind of grow into the position.
Yeah, you don't know that, though. And you're a team trying to win a Super Bowl.
Well, I would ask Stoutland, and I would go by whatever he says.
And I'm sure they will, yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Dillard is better than Driscoll. He just is. And when you're 6-0, you're really not in a position to start, giving away pieces. So,
and it's scary to think about, they trade him, and then in 2 weeks, something happens to Jordan Mailata. You go, oh man, was that 4th round pick really worth it? Probably not.
Yeah, but for a 3, it's a pretty good pick.
Yeah, that's kind of my line.
Yeah,
and it might have to be a good 3. Like it might have to be, a team that's not very good, but they think they are, because there are a lot of those teams right now.
Yeah,
it's kind of the age of the NFL right now in this year that there are a lot of those teams that kind of stink, but they can talk themselves into thinking they don't stink.
Yeah, because if you're 3-4 right now, you're thinking, got a shot.
Yeah.
Got a shot at something.
Absolutely. All right, that's all we had on Robert Quinn. I have one more thing. Pretty clear how much Chris Long likes him, because just about every player I talked to in the locker room about Robert Quinn said how much Chris Long has already talked him up. So I kind of trust Chris's judgment on a lot. So good sign.
Yeah, no doubt. They were teammates for two years. Teammates for a couple years.
Yeah, more than that, I think. All right, injuries I wanted to get to today. Some good news coming out of Eagles practice. The best news of all is Lane Johnson officially cleared the concussion protocol. He's back. He was at practice today with the helmet. Good to go for Sunday.
Yeah, big relief. They're just not the same O-line without him. And, I think when he doesn't play, you just realize how freaking good he is.
He might be their best player.
He could very well be. And I still think he's as underrated as, I think everyone kind of understands that Kelsey's as good as any center in the league. People understand how good Malott and the other guys are. But for some reason, and I don't know, it could even go back to his suspensions early in his career. I just don't think people realize. When's the last sack he gave up? 2020? Hasn't given up a hurry this year.
Yeah, and the thing about, I think there's a few things to play against him. Suspensions are one of them. The injury recently is one of them. But also, I think there's still a stigma against right tackles, which, as we've seen here the last few years, is not warranted, because it's not like you're playing your best guy on the left side anymore. Look around the league and how many good rushers rush against the right tackle. So you got to have a stud on that side too. And it's always like, is he the best right tackle in football? And some people say it's Tristan Wirfs. I think it's probably Lane. But it goes beyond that. Like, is he the best tackle in football is a legitimate question. Yeah,
I agree with you. And really the perception of those positions, I think, has changed in maybe the last 10 years, where I think they're kind of interchangeable now, especially the way, a lot of pass rushers line up on both sides. He's still protecting a right-handed quarterback's blind side on at left tackle, but you can't run your offense without good guys at both spots. Mm-hmm. When Lane was drafted, the original plan was he was going to move to left tackle.
Yeah. And then Peters just didn't stop.
Peters didn't stop, and Lane was just too good to even. It's like, all right, can't move him.
It's kind of like with Isaac. The plan with Isaac was to make him the center when Kelsey was done, and it's 7 years later, and Kelsey's still the best center in football.
Yeah. Now the plan is to make Isaac the center when Cam Jurgens is done.
The other big injury news: Brandon Graham back at practice on Thursday. He has a hamstring injury. He suffered it against Dallas. He said him not practicing on Wednesday was more precautionary. He should be good to go too.
Yeah, and I wonder, there's nothing that Gannon and Sirianni would like better than to, get up, score their usual 21 points in the second quarter, and then just build on it and be able to rest some guys, because you got a game coming up Thursday. And, I know that they're going to look at that. They would love to be up 28-6 in the late in the third quarter and give some guys, some reps off. As long as the lead is safe, because we've certainly seen what can happen. But you have to kind of look at Sunday's game with an eye on Thursday, especially a road game on a Thursday. Because these guys are gonna get home Sunday night, come in the building Monday, and fly to Houston on Wednesday. That's tough duty. So I think that would be ideal. So it's good to have.
He was limited on Thursday, but all signs point to Graham playing.
Yeah, I would expect him to be out there. But if not, you got Robert Quinn.
It's not a bad backup plan.
And your guy Brett Toth is back?
No, well, he's not practicing.
Oh, I thought you said they opened the window on him.
No. He's been he's been out there running around. He looks good. I think he's probably ready.
I thought I misheard you when you came in because Tyree Jackson, they did open the window on him, so he's got his 21 days. With that ACL that goes back to the Dallas game in January.
What do you do with him when he's ready?
I don't know. I mean,
you're not going to carry 4 tight ends.
Not going to carry 4 tight ends. You're not going to obviously Stoll and Calcaterra. I mean, I don't think you're going to.
I mean, you can argue that Jackson might give them more than Calcaterra this year.
You can argue that, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of Tyree Jackson. He hasn't played much.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. It's not like he's more experienced than Calcaterra.
Right. He's probably a little bit better blocker. But we've seen Calcaterra take off on a 40-yard catch and run as well. So I'll be surprised if he gets activated.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be surprised. Hey, you deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself. Shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today. You know, every time I read that, I think of that song Goosebumps by Ian Lloyd. Remember Ian Lloyd?
No.
He had that album called Goosebumps. Ian Lloyd was the singer in the band Stories that did that song Brother Louie. Remember Louie, Louie, Louie,
okay,
Louie?
I know that song.
Yeah, so Ian Lloyd was the singer in that band, and Rick Ocasek from the Cars produced the Goosebumps solo album, which is a great record. And yeah, so I'm sure that song will be going through your mind as you drive home tonight.
I hope not, if I can avoid that.
Great song.
The Steelers.
The Steelers.
Come to town on Sunday. Haven't come to Philly and won in a long time. They don't play an awful lot here.
Haven't won in Philly since 1965.
I won't ask it.
What?
What was that game like?
1965. They've lost 9 straight in Philly. Roethlisberger never won in Philly. But yeah, like you said, they don't play that often. But yeah, it's a game. Look, it's a game, and probably say this about the next few. I mean, it's a game, and the toughest game in their next 4 might be Washington. That's here.
In a lot of ways, they're really playing themselves in the next month.
That's a good way to put it, and I think that's true. I mean, because you figure with these next 4 games, at least these next 4, we'll see what happens to Green Bay. You know, and I mean, Tennessee looks pretty formidable out there in 5 weeks. But these next 4 quarterbacks they play, you know, inexperienced. These next 4 teams are not very good. Washington might be the most dangerous out of the whole group. And if the Eagles can just avoid mistakes and go out and play smart and not turn the ball over and play the way they've been playing, it's going to be tough for these next few teams to beat them.
Yeah. You want to go through some of these matchups here?
Yeah, what do you got?
The first one, the most obvious one to me, is this Eagles defense. It's been so good at taking the football away, going against Kenny Pickett, who has 2 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in his early career.
Yeah, 7 interceptions in just 120 some odd pass attempts, which is, you know, I mean, that's a crazy number. These guys are ball hawks, and I think the thing I love about this defense is when they get opportunities, they're taking advantage of them. I mean, when the ball's in the air, when a ball gets deflected, I mean, they're making tough catches. They're making smart plays on the ball. If they can't pick it off, they're knocking it down. Pickett's going to throw it up for grabs. He's shown that. And he's also not really getting the ball down the field either, which, you know, you would kind of, I mean, he's been accurate, but what is he averaging? 6 yards per attempt.
And they're trying to get the ball down the field.
Yeah, they are.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, they are. And they have a couple of decent receivers. Their tight end's pretty dangerous. He's not bad, but yeah, I just see this secondary feasting on a kid making what's it going to be his 4th career start.
Yeah, his 5th game, 4th start because he came in for Trubisky early.
Yeah.
I have a fun stat for you.
Oh, I like stats.
The first quarterback through his first 4 games to have 2 or fewer touchdowns and 7 or more picks since Ryan Leaf.
Oh, that's a good one. Ryan Leaf. His last career win was against the Eagles. in San Diego. It was the first time I ever tried fish tacos.
Well, momentous day for you.
Yeah, there was a fish taco stand outside. Where was it? Where did they play? Jack Murphy Stadium, I guess, and that old San Diego Stadium. And we walked down the ramp and got all the entire Philadelphia media walked down and got fish tacos. That was the Ryan Leaf game. Did you
get him anything?
Did I get Ryan anything?
Yeah.
I got him a fish taco.
Nice.
But yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's not good. I don't know if this kid is ready. I mean, this is going to be.
He has some talent. Like you see flashes. Like he'll make some great throws, and you go, oh, and he's kind of fleet of foot too. Now he hasn't run a whole bunch, but he can run a little bit. He's got some athleticism. We remember watching him when Nick Sirianni brought it up that the fake slide that he pulled at Pittsburgh that quickly became illegal, but he has some wheels on him. Yeah,
he does. That's one thing that a lot of these young guys, like even if they're not big scramblers, I mean, like the kid in Indy, Sam Ellinger, he's a big time runner.
Yeah. That game between them and Washington is kind of fun. You have these two spunky quarterbacks who run around a lot.
Yeah. You know, Taylor Heineke's 29. I
didn't know he was that old.
Did not realize he was that old. He's 29. He's been on 5 teams. He's bounced around for years. I didn't realize that. Those guys are dangerous. But as far as Pickett, I mean, he does make some wow throws between the 20s. I mean, it's been the red zone. He's just really struggled to make plays in the red zone and put it up for grabs. I like that.
A few picks late in the game last week, and it's like, man, if he can start to avoid that, then maybe they can be a little bit better of a team because they like you mentioned, this is the next matchup here. They have some weapons to throw to. These receivers are good. I'll still take the Eagles corners going against them, but Pickens looks like the real deal.
Sure.
2nd round pick from Georgia. Deontay Johnson is a pretty good player. He gets the bulk of their targets. And then Chase Claypool is, if he's your 3rd receiver, that's not bad.
And that Freemuth guy, he's pretty good. He's pretty good to men. They've scored 13 points in Pickett's 2 road starts. Now, obviously, one was in Buffalo. So, I mean, the other was in Miami. So, in this stadium that I'm looking at right over here, this Lincoln Financial Field right there.
Thanks for showing us what that looks like.
I know, because some people don't know. They might be looking for the vet, going to the wrong place. Man, it's going to be nuts in there. It's going to be nuts, especially what's going on with the Phillies. It's going to be crazy, and it's going to be an atmosphere. And I think, he's an older kid. He's 24. But I just think it's going to be a really, really difficult atmosphere for a young quarterback to come into.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. And one of my next matchup here is a fun one because I already had it on my list and I have to update it a little bit. Okay. I had Josh Sweat against Dan Moore Jr., their left tackle. You can go ahead and say Josh Sweat and Robert Quinn against Dan Moore Jr. He's their weakest link. That left side of their line isn't great. Take it with a grain of salt, but PFF ranks Moore as a 67th ranked left or tackle in football out of 77. He struggled.
Interesting. Yeah. That's definitely looks like a matchup that those guys can feast on. The Eagles only have 1 sack in their last 2 games. So
yeah, and Sweat's been playing well. The numbers aren't there. The last 3 games, I don't think he's had a sack or a QB hit, but he's playing well. It's only a matter of time, and this could be the game where it comes for him.
I've historically never been a huge Sweat guy, but I do like the way he's playing.
He's playing very well.
Yeah.
He really is. Next one is Eagles O-line versus Steelers D-line. They should be able to control this matchup. Without TJ Watt, this Steelers defense does not have the same teeth. They led the league in sacks last year, and they missed the reigning defensive player of the year, but they missed him even more than I thought they would.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're gonna miss a guy like that. I guess Alex Highsmith's got a bunch of sacks for them.
6.5.
Yeah. So he's kind of.
But I also think he's playing an awful lot, and he's had to do all this because they're missing Watt, I don't know if it's sustainable. Cam Hayward's still playing well on the inside. Doesn't have great numbers this year, but he's still a very good player. He's still their best defensive player. It's not Highsmith. It's Cam Hayward. I know he's 33, 32, 33, 34, something like that, but he's playing at a high level still.
Yeah. You're just happy that the Eagles O-line coming off the bye, they're going to be healthy, and it's a matchup I think they will take advantage of.
Yeah, they should. My last one is Jalen Hurts against this pass defense. He has a ton of respect for Minkah Fitzpatrick. Told a really cool story about Minkah during their Alabama days that, it would be a Friday, Saturday night. A lot of his teammates are out doing whatever college kids do on a Friday or Saturday night. He'd go to the facility thinking he's there alone, and Minkah Fitzpatrick's already there working out. So you can tell he has a ton of respect for him. Minkah's a good player. That pass defense is not good.
No, it's not. And yeah, I was just looking at some of the numbers. Opposing quarterbacks, 13 touchdowns in 7 games. Yeah.
29th ranked in the league. They've given up 30 pass plays of 20-plus yards. Tied in the NFL, yeah. So you can get chunks on this team.
And that's something, the Eagles haven't really gotten a lot of the last couple of weeks. So I'd like to see them stretch the field a little bit.
Yeah, and look, they've been winning. So it's like whatever works. But it'd be nice to see Jalen have a game like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the opponent to do it. But the thing about Jalen, he finds. He does whatever he needs to do. Their run defense. I'm just looking here. They've about 800. Having over 100 yards a game. 4.1 is respectable. But yeah, those passing numbers. They've allowed 13 passing touchdowns in 7 games. 2,000 yards. 12.3 yards per completion. That's really high.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think. You really see Jalen exploit the middle of the field and get the ball down the field.
The last thing we have here, the Phillies might be out 2-0 in the World Series before our next podcast.
I guess that's possible.
It's possible.
Houston's really good. It's going to be a fun World Series.
They are very good.
It's such opposite. Like one team, what do they win? 106 games?
Yeah.
And they haven't lost a game in the postseason. And then you have the Phillies who just scrap for everything. They're losing 6-1 in every game, and they find ways to win. It's a great matchup. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
And it seems like it's fun too. And obviously the whole city's on fire right now, feeling good about this. But NovaCare Complex is feeling it too. It's fun to see the other teams support the other teams in the city.
Yeah. And do you think that's – there's not a lot of cities that have 4 teams, but it's just really cool, I think, and it's genuine.
I feel like it's relatively new. It felt like, at least from an organizational standpoint, how many years did it feel like they were always trying – each team was trying to steal the spotlight from the other team?
That was more front office.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying I think it trickles down though. I think too. It's I think
Todd Harriman's at Sixers games all the time. I don't know what that means. Here, I have a question for you. When you leave the NovaCare complex, you go down Broad to 95, or do you go down Patterson? What do you?
It depends on.
Depends.
Yeah.
I'm wondering. So, my brother's used to be a season ticket holder for the Red Sox, and he had somebody cancel a World Series ticket once, and I jumped on the Excel at 6 the next morning and went up to Fenway Park and watched the World Series game, which was really cool. And I think Oil Can Boyd pitched, if I remember. But there was a giant shopping center outside the stadium with all kinds of souvenirs and stuff and World Series memorabilia. And I'm wondering if they're going to have something like that across the street here, because I would like to go get some gear.
Well, it'll probably just spill out of the team store in the ballpark, and maybe on that where they've had that Ferris wheel.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe you're right.
I know the team store has been really crowded.
Yeah, but they had at Fenway, they had the entire street closed, and they had they turned it into this big outdoor thing with bars and restaurants and food vendors, and there was some giant tents with just jammed with with gear. So
License gear?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm sure there'll be some guys out here with a shopping cart. You can get whatever you want.
No, I'm talking
You want a
about
Pretzelana shirt? Make a deal.
Like
$2.15.
knit logo.
Pretzel
You
shirt.
you want a hoodie with a knit logo.
You can get a T-shirt, still got Didi Gregorius on it. Whatever you want out there.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the real stuff. So I'm gonna walk over there. I'm gonna walk over there. Early next week. Check it out. Yeah.
We have time to figure that out.
Yeah.
All right. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor. We've really run out of steam here. So rate and subscribe.
It's just going to be insane Sunday. And especially, I mean, I don't even know if it matters what happens in those first two games. I think the atmosphere is going to be even more crazy because of what the Phillies are doing.
Maybe.
I do.
Okay.
And because the Sixers, they're not winless.
That's true. If you enjoy the podcast, rate, subscribe, do all that stuff. We'll talk to you after the game on Sunday. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan.